Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
One expression which you will find being used quite often these days in relation to China's aggressive way of dealing with the rest of the world, particularly its neighbors, is called wolf warrior diplomacy. So what is wolf warrior diplomacy and what does it lead to? I will talk about that, but before I do that, I will recommend to you to see three things on the print today. One is an article by former Indian Foreign Secretary and one of the finest members of a foreign service in a long time, Shyam Saran, on why China is behaving like this, and he says that this is coming from China's anxieties about the pandemic and the questions it's being asked about the pandemic. So what happens when you are under attack? Then you start attacking instead of defending. So offense is the best form of defense. That's one article. Another article is by Abhijit Iyer Mitra, who writes on defense related issues. Also, he's worked with a well-known OSINT, that is open source intelligence handle, whose name I don't know who runs it. It's a he or she or they, I don't know, but it's a fairly regular OSINT handle, and many of these OSINT handles tend to be anonymous. So this is OSINT handle called DistressFA. You can check it out. Now, between them, they have accessed a bunch of satellite pictures, and they're going to be writing a 3-part series for the print, explaining what exactly has happened on the entire Ladakh border, from the east to the center to the western sector. So today, the first installment from them has appeared that looks at the Pangong Lake or Pangong area. That is where those two videos have surfaced, of one of Chinese looking like having a few Indian soldiers, injured soldiers with them tied up, and another one with Indian soldiers having some Chinese soldiers beating up some Chinese soldiers and having an injured Chinese soldier in their control. So these two videos have come from the Pangong area, and there is a lot of speculation in terms of how far have the Chinese come, have they taken any territory from India. So that is the second article. And the third article you should read is a story by Nayanuma Basu, who's our diplomatic editor. She's interviewed Chung Quan Tien. Chung Quan Tien is the representative of Taiwan in India. He is like the head of the Taiwanese trade mission, which is a diplomatic euphemism for an envoy, but Taiwan is not a country that India recognizes. India, in fact, has a firm commitment to one China policy. So Taiwan has a trade mission. Similarly, Taiwanese do a lot of trade and business in mainland China as well. So Chinese are able to cover for that. In that, he uses this expression again. He says that Chinese aggressive behavior with India underlines its wolf warrior diplomacy. So what is wolf warrior diplomacy? First of all, what Shyam Saran is saying, that this comes from China's sense of insecurity, and because China now has a siege mindset. China has traditionally had a siege mindset which comes from what happened in the 19th century. The Chinese talk about it. Second, you see that what's happening on the border is maramari of the kind we haven't seen before. So this is not the way professional armies are meant to behave, that you bring lathis, you bring iron rods with spikes on them and start fighting another country's army. The other country's army will also fight back. These are tough armies, they can fight back. But this is not the way you would expect a big power like China to behave. And the third, of course, is what the Taiwanese representative is saying, that this is because this China is being wolf warrior, meaning this China wants to be aggressive. Now, what is wolf warrior? Wolf warrior is the name, if you think India draws its inspiration from Bollywood or America draws its inspiration from Hollywood. I don't know what it's called in China, but China also has its movies. Indian movies are very popular in China. Amir Khan's in particular, but Chinese movies also are big hits. So 2015, the Chinese produced a film called Wolf Warrior. So Wolf Warrior became very popular. It did a business of more than 600 crores in no time, and that is about Chinese soldiers going out and teaching the enemies of China a lesson, very much like what somebody like Sunny Deol would do, or now Akshay Kumar will do, and some of the others going to foreign countries and holding the country's flag aloft, usually single-handedly or with a bunch of dirty dozen type or a few good men type people to do this. Now this became like a Rambo 1, Rambo 2. 2017, a second one came out, Wolf Warrior 2, and you will see some stills from those movies there. Those look very familiar. So this became like Rambo 1, Rambo 2. So the Chinese invented their own equivalent of Rambo, and the tagline of the film is, even though 1,000 miles away, anyone who affronts China will pay. Even though 1,000 miles away, anyone who affronts China will pay. So once again in the Sunny Deol, Akshay Kumar, Salman Khan kind of genre. But that became popular, and that's why when the Chinese diplomats suddenly changed their way of responding to the world. Usually Chinese diplomats tend to be very conventional, very prosaic. They speak in long paras and sentences that go round and round, and then you have to read between the lines to see what they mean. But there's been a change of style in Chinese diplomacy. That is verbally, in terms of the spoken word. It started with our favorite friend Lijian Zhao, or Xiao Lijian. Some people use first as second, the second as first. He used to be the Chinese number 2 in their embassy in Pakistan. He got into a scrap with Susan Rice, who is the former national security advisor in the US. That's because he said that, oh, who are these Americans making accusations at China about Uyghurs? He's an Uyghur himself, about their treatment of Uyghurs. Look at how they treat their own blacks. There are areas of Washington DC where Americans themselves cannot go. And then Susan Rice responded to him, and he responded back in a very nasty manner, which was not something that you would expect from a diplomat. But that is the new Chinese diplomatic style, and after that several others have emerged. After him, the Chinese ambassador in UK, Chinese ambassador in France, many of them have taken that line now. And in fact, even Lijian Zhao's boss, whose name is Hua Chunying, and I have this quote from a CNN story exactly on this Wolf Warrior phenomenon that I will run on the screen, and I'm drawing some of the facts from that story. So thank you very much, the writers of the story. She said, Hua Chunying said that there are people easily spread lies and conspiracy theories about China, so Chinese have to push back. Similarly, this Monday, Liu Xiaoming, the Chinese ambassador in London, he said that to call us Wolf Warrior, call our diplomacy Wolf Warrior diplomacy, is to misunderstand our diplomacy. Our diplomacy, he said, I'm quoting from the CNN story, our diplomacy is independent foreign policy for peace. That sounds like an old Chinese formulation, a more conventional Chinese formulation. So he said ours is an independent foreign policy for peace, but sometimes a strong hand is needed. So that strong hand is now much in evidence wherever you go. And you can see why the Chinese have been on the defensive. So on Sunday, last Sunday, Chinese foreign minister, who is usually very soft spoken and very diplomatic, Wang Yi, he said that, look, what you see now is a pushback. Sometimes a pushback is needed against deliberate insults. And what are the deliberate insults he's talking about? Then go back to Shyam Saran's article on the print. The insults he's talking about is many countries in the world, in fact most of the rest of the world, asking, did the Chinese tell us early enough about the virus? How did the virus escape from China? Where did the virus come from? Was China transparent? did China keep its obligations under international health laws? So many countries are asking that questions. Some countries, especially the US, are making a frontal allegation saying the Chinese did not do so. In fact, Donald Trump now has made this essential to his election campaign, and he now says that China is responsible, quote unquote, for the death of so many Americans and so many people around the world. And that has pushed the Chinese on the defensive. That's why I said, read this phenomenon with Shyam Saran's article in the print, because this comes from this sense of siege in the Chinese mind at this point. Next, the other two things, you saw the Taiwanese rep saying that this is coming from this mindset. Once again, China is the second most dominant power in the world, and given in fact the instability right now in American politics and polarization and the total focus in China and Xi Jinping's total control, China might even be as powerful as the US, if not more, because it also seems to have come to grips with the coronavirus situation much earlier than the rest. If there's one thing the Chinese know, it's scale. So see, they tested nearly 8 million people, 80 lakh people in and around Wuhan in 48 hours. Can you imagine? We congratulate ourselves if we can scale up our testing in such a country population almost as large as all of China's to 1.5 lakh a day. But the Chinese did that. So the Chinese know scale. They have the coronavirus situation in control. Yet for them to be so much on the defensive, you ask me, analytically, I don't know. What is it that is causing it? Is it because they think that by creating all this trouble around them in Hong Kong, with India, with Taiwan, with all their neighboring countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, etc., because they have maritime issues with them, by doing all that, they divert attention from this? Or this is their way of saying that if you also raise questions, you better not, you dare not raise questions or join hands with the Americans to raise these questions, or there will be consequences because we live in your neighborhood? Or is it being done by Xi Jinping for his internal constituency to give them a message that, look, the whole world is against us, I'm fighting back? Because remember, nationalism is the glue that binds China. It's also the fuel that drives China. For too long, in fact, my generation and after have looked at China as a communist country. Today, it's anything but a communist country. So you have to go back to the words that in 1950, somewhere around that time, Sardar Patel spoke with Jawaharlal Nehru, who said, don't make a mistake about China thinking that it's a communist country. China's ideology is not communism. China's ideology is nationalism. So this prickliness and defensiveness may come from that. Having said that, now I will now switch subjects to coronavirus. You know, today was the first day of a grand opening up of most of India. In Delhi, coming to my office took me my usual 35 minutes instead of the 10 or 12 minutes that it was taking me last several weeks, because there was so much traffic. Everybody's out on the streets. So the test comes now. The virus is not defeated. If you see these graphics that I show you, and these are graphics, this is a metric we had seen earlier, that is the number of days by which recovered cases trail all infections, and by which recovered cases trail active cases. Active cases are total infections minus cured cases minus the unfortunate deaths. So if you see that on the absolute number of total infections, earlier this was trailing by 18 days, now it's 16 days. We said to you, less is better. So 18 to 16 is not such a big improvement, but it's an improvement, so it's better. But if you look at active cases trailing, active cases being trailed by cured cases or recovered cases, this is now down to 4 days from 8 days. That means it's considerably better. But having said that, I have to give you a rider or a qualification. The qualification to this is that Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and ICMR have changed some protocols and criteria, whereby, and this is based on several reports, research reports that are now coming out since more data is available on COVID cases from around the world, saying that from about 10th day or so after getting infected, a person is not infectious anymore, even if that person still tests positive in RT-PCR. So in fact, now the requirement for a second test after 10 days for asymptomatic cases has been waived. So people are now being released into the population as having recovered fully much earlier than before. This change has come about lately, and because of that change also, you find that this gap is narrowing. Either way, it looks like a reassuring thing.